My name's Bryce Wasserman, and this is Pro Lacrosse Talk.
On Schreiber. Sidearm whip. Scores. Now in front. Fidel scores. Hands off for Rabel. Switches hands and scores.
Kylie O'Miller showing off those shifty skills.
Right off the bat, there's Lyle Thompson.
Bryce Wasserman.
He just gets his hands freezed and just rips that ball far side.
Welcome to Pro Lacrosse Talk, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam. Together we're bringing you interviews with your favorite players and coaches, as well as news from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. I'm here with Bryce Wasserman, one of the newest members of the Boston Cannons, 2019 MLL All Star, and as we like to call him, Agent 002. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pumped to be here.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate you coming on, especially kind of off the heels of that big trade that sent you to the Cannons. But we want to kind of, start off where you got started in your lacrosse career in Southlake, Texas. Tell me when you first started playing lacrosse and what drew you to the sport.
Yeah, so it's a funny story. My dad didn't play lacrosse. None of my brothers did. I'm the oldest of 3 brothers. So no one really put a stick in my hands at a young age. It's funny. I actually got into the sport because the baseball practice field in my town, Southlake, Texas, literally shares a fence with the lacrosse practice field. So one day, 6th grade, I'm sitting in right field, bored out of my mind, take a peek over the fence, and I saw lacrosse going on. I sat there and watched it for a little bit and came home, told my parents, hey, that looks like a lot more fun. I think I want to try lacrosse. And then went to my first practice the next week and never looked back.
No, that's awesome. And your dad played football at Towson, correct? So you kind of had that athletic genes in your family, correct?
I don't know if I'd call him athletic, but yeah, that Towson connection definitely helped me get my start in lacrosse because my dad knew a few buddies from college and then obviously reached back out to school, and they actually sent me a box of my first gear was actually from Towson. They sent me a little box because my dad was like, yeah, I have no idea what's going on, but I know some guys that played up at Towson, so they helped me get my start, which was awesome.
That's awesome. And when did your dad attend Towson? I'm just wondering because I have actually some uncles, and actually Adam, who can't be on with us today, his father-in-law, my uncle Jerry, played at Towson.
Yeah, he was 83 to 87. That's 4 years. Yeah, so 83 to 87 was when he was there playing football with Dave Meggett, all those legends. So yeah, 83 to 87 was his years. All
right, I'll have to definitely link up with my uncle and see if he knew. I'm sure there's a connection there. But going off of that, how was it kind of being recruited to Monmouth University, being from Texas? Did you have any struggles with going through the recruiting process, being from what's not considered a hotbed in lacrosse?
Yeah, so I'd say my struggles were twofold because, one, I was coming from Texas, which was obviously a non-hotbed area, especially at that time back in 2012, 2013 when I was getting recruited. So that definitely made it tough, kind of getting exposure to coaches and having people believe my abilities. But then I'd say the second fold issue with my recruiting was I honestly wasn't that great in high school. I loved the game, worked at it every day. I had a decent stick, had some good stick skills, was good at shooting. But I was just a late bloomer, right now I'm 6'3". My sophomore year of high school, I think I was 5'9", 5'10", something. Yeah, so I was a late bloomer in terms of my athletic ability, which definitely held me back in my game. So that I'd say that also led to some struggles getting some exposure to some college coaches. But I'd say I finally turned the corner that summer going into my junior year, which was very, very late in the process at that point. I mean, as everyone remembers, there were guys in my grade that was the day and age of kids committing going into their freshman year, so all those blue chip schools had their recruiting classes filled by the time that I even got good at lacrosse, heading into my junior years. But that never really affected me. I wasn't I want to go to Notre Dame or I'm not playing lacrosse. I just wanted to play at the next level. Distance was never really a factor to me because I knew I was gonna have to get on a plane to go to college anyway if I wanted to play. So my 3 options were Monmouth, Furman, and Towson. Towson, obviously, that connection I had with my dad definitely helped me out, and I was always kind of on their radar. And then Monmouth and Furman were the 2 new programs at that time. They had actually never even played a game by the time that they had offered me my scholarship offers. So I think I made that decision to Monmouth around Thanksgiving time my junior year, which, like I said, was incredibly late. But I was impressed with Coach Fisher, Coach Geeson, Coach Mack, and the culture they were building up in Monmouth. And everyone who's been to Monmouth knows how incredible that campus is, half a mile from the beach. And And you
Mm-hmm.
know what? Like the package that they were selling, kind of being able to start a team was something that no one else in the country besides Furman could offer at that point. So that was something that really intrigued me, and honestly just kind of like followed my path. From like being the first one in my family to play the game, being the first one of the first ones from my high school to go play in college, like just kind of like continuing that theme of being one of the first to do something. So that was something that really drew me to Monmouth, was the opportunity to start the team.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you mentioned a guy, Coach Geeson. I don't know if you know this. He was a head coach of DeSales University, where I actually attended. So there's a little connection there. I was, I think, a junior in high school right when he left. So it was really early on in my recruiting process. I actually never met Coach Geeson, but a lot of the guys that I played with when I was a freshman and sophomore played under him. So there is that connection there. And I've heard only all but good things from Coach Geeson, and obviously the program that he kind of had going at DeSales continued on even after he was gone. So definitely a name that doesn't surprise me that he drew you to that program.
Yeah, he's an evil genius when it comes to defense. We were very lucky to have him at Monmouth.
No, for sure. And while you were at Monmouth, you became the all-time leader in goals with 99, game-winning goals with 9. Hat-tricks with 14. I know you guys were a relatively new program, but you're still set the bar really, really high. Assists with 50, and then overall points with 149. How did you elevate your game once you got to college?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of that mentality that I gained when I first picked up a stick and all the way through high school, and then going into college. I was never the one that was like praised for my abilities. I just always kind of kept my nose to the grindstone, kept working. When I finally did start getting some success in college, I had already had kind of established that mentality in my brain that like it still wasn't good enough and there was still a next level to get to, and it was kind of like that chip on my shoulder too, coming from Texas, no one really believed in me, and then showing up at Monmouth, no one really believed in Monmouth, so I think it was kind of that like being counted out was something that definitely motivated me too. And I mean, all the guys at Monmouth were awesome. We all kind of bought into I guess the ideals that coach set in us, that like we were setting the footsteps for other kids to follow. Like you show up at Duke and you show up at all these schools and it's like, oh, I want to follow in the footsteps that Deemer Class, Miles Jones, Jordan Wolf set.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had the opportunity to be those footsteps, so that 10 years when kids get recruited to Monmouth, they can be like, oh, I want to follow in that 2017 team's footsteps when they made the NCAA tournament, like top 20 ranking, all that kind of stuff. So I think that was a really big motivating factor, not only for me, but for the whole team, to just kind of like lay those foundations and those footsteps for the next Monmouth kids for the next 20, 30 years to follow.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, you ended up becoming, on top of that, the first Monmouth player drafted in the MLL. You were selected by the Denver Outlaws in 2018 before eventually being released by the Outlaws and found your way onto the Ohio Machine, where you spent your rookie season. Talk to me through, getting drafted and then, kind of getting released by the Outlaws, finally finding yourself on the Machine and, your rookie season. What kind of helped you make that jump to the pros?
Yeah, so I mean, like getting into all that, even going off of what I was talking about being from Texas and going to Monmouth, like lacrosse and especially pro lacrosse is a gentleman's club. It's like a country club that I never thought that I would ever be a part of,
Mm-hmm.
just because like always being counted out the whole way through, so it was never even a thought to me that I would even be involved in it. Obviously, like I watched pro lacrosse. I was on the field at Bayhawks games like the first year that I had a stick in my hands, because Coach Nadalin, who's the coach of Towson, played for the Bayhawks. But regardless, like I was at Bayhawks games year one of me loving lacrosse, so, but just in my brain, it was just this gentleman's club. I didn't go to Duke. I didn't go to insert school here. I wasn't going to go to the pros. Like college is it for me. I've got to give everything I have. And I think that kind of fueled me. And then when it finally came around to my senior year and I started getting calls from all these coaches, it was pretty surreal. They call and they ask what your plans are, jobs, etc. So to see if you're available to play. And I started getting those phone calls, and it was pretty crazy to me, because that was always my mentality, that it was just like, this wasn't meant for me, and so once I started getting those calls, it kind of got me pretty pumped up to be a part of it, like, because then it was just another another reset. Like, I'm counted out being from Texas, make it to college.
Mm-hmm.
I'm counted out because I'm at Monmouth, make it to the pros, count out again, so So it was pretty exciting. And then I watched the whole draft all the way through the second to last pick when my name got called, and it was a surreal feeling because I was finally included in this like mythical gentleman's club that was Pro Lacrosse, and like
yeah.
I couldn't have been more excited, just like coming from where I come from, Texas to Monmouth, and then cracking into the likes of, like Kyle Harrison, Tom Schreiber, insert name here, like all those guys. So get the call from Denver. They drafted me. Monmouth finishes our season up in May. So did North Carolina. The Outlaws drafted me and Chris Cloutier in that same draft. So I get the phone call from Tony Seaman, and he says that they're gonna dress Kluch first, see how he plays, and then I would get my shot. And of course, he goes out to Denver and has 6 goals in his opening game.
Yeah.
So okay, well, I got my fingers crossed for something to happen where I get the phone call to go out there, and I mean, I was kind of stuck in the fate that a lot of guys in the pro lacrosse ranks are stuck in, and it's just the nature of the beast. I'm sitting on my couch working out at home, just kind of waiting on a phone call that was never going to come. And thankfully, though, that was the summer with the World Games back in 2018, the World Games in Israel.
Yep.
So I had the MLL had games that weekend of the World Games. So the guys who were on the world teams were going to miss. So I had that game marked on my calendar. Finally give Coach Seaman a call. I was like, Coach, World Games are coming up. I know you're losing some offensive firepower. I'm ready. I stayed ready. And he kind of told me, like, listen, we're going to dress some local Denver guys. I'm really sorry about this. They're just going to be place fillers until our guys get back.
That must have kind of been devastating, though, for you to hear, right? Because, you've been working, you're waiting for that shot. You said you marked it on your calendar, and then to kind of get that call, like, what was going through your head after that?
Oh, I was devastated, because it was just another like beat down. Like this isn't for you, Bryce. You don't have this pedigree. You're never going to be a part of it. Was essentially how I felt, and it pissed me off a little bit. So I remember I hung up the phone with him, kind of just sat down, just sulked, like put my head in my chest, sat there, and then I just kind of got angry, and I literally called him back 5 minutes later. I said, Coach, I respect your decision, but I want to play in this league. I will do whatever it takes. I appreciate you drafting me and giving me that opportunity, but please release me. I want to go find my shot somewhere else. There will be other teams that need help this weekend. I want to go find who needs help. And
wow.
I mean, thankfully, Coach Seaman did, because he absolutely did not have to release me. He could have just been like, relax, we'll get you out here eventually, whatever. But no, he was like, okay, I respect that. Released me, and then I made phone calls to everybody else in the league. Just chopped up a highlight tape from college in case they hadn't scouted me, and just kind of send it back out to everybody. Hey, World Games are coming up. If you're missing an O guy, sign me. Like, you will not regret it.
And that's awesome.
So then I get the phone call from Coach Davis, saying that the machine had the number one option in the waivers that week, and that they were going to sign me. That was incredible. And it was kind of just like bang, bang, like, we're signing you, pack your stuff, you're coming to Ohio on Friday. So I go out to Ohio, but I actually had like a cancer scare that week on Wednesday.
Oh, I was not aware. Wow.
Yeah, I did a video with FCA about it. So I slipped a disc in my back, went back for my follow-up before I go out to Ohio. They saw like a lump, and I guess it turned out to be a blood clot. But on Wednesday, I'm like at an oncologist's office getting bone scans, like the whole, literally top to bottom of my body. They're like, yeah, we can't find anything else, but that doesn't look good. You should not play this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
So that was Wednesday, which was 48 hours before the flight. Didn't really sleep that night. And then thankfully, on Thursday that week, I made the decision to go. Friday, I'm at the airport getting ready to go to Ohio, and a family friend who's a doctor called, and he was like, yeah, we looked at your stuff again. It's a blood clot. You're fine. Go get after it this weekend. Like, it's your time, So, it's pretty crazy. Like, I talked to the family, and like, I made that decision to go before I knew that, because it just like meant that much to me. And I'm not I've never told that story like for pity or anything. I know that there's 100 guys right now that if they got told the same thing, they would go play pro lacrosse.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
they're just hungry for their shot, so like.
Yeah, and you didn't want to miss it.
Right. And I think that that's what's great about the pro game is that, you do it because you love the game. And I'm fully confident there's 100 guys that would have done the same thing. But so getting back into that first game in Ohio, that locker room was loaded with all the veterans. You got Kyle Harrison, Tom Schreiber, Peter Baum, Scott Rodgers. The list goes on and on, of just all these veterans been in the league for years. Show up in my first practice so nervous, just absolutely like jacked up with energy. Get out there, had a good practice, and Scott Rodgers actually pulled me aside for the Friday practice. He's like, "Listen, man, I know you come from Monmouth. Like, you belong here." And that was just like the best feeling ever, like because he had been around the game for years at that point and been in the pro ranks ever since college and was a stud in college. And he was a part of that gentleman's club, that I referenced before. So
yeah.
So to have like one of them pull me aside and you're in this, like you belong here, was the best feeling ever, So I slept like a rock that night, got up the next day for the game, played well. We ended up losing. After the game, Coach Davis pulls me aside and says that he's going to bring me back out for the Thursday night game. And it came back, had a breakout game, had a hat trick or something like that. And then I was in the lineup for the very last game. So I had only played in 3 games, played well in that last game out in Boston. So yeah, that was my rookie season. It was kind of a whirlwind, but just like I remember that conversation with Scott Rodgers, when he was like, "Dude, you belong here. You're a part of this now." So, I mean, that was what took the weight off my shoulders and just let me go play like I was back at Monmouth,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, that's an incredible story, and it's amazing too. It's just a testament, I guess, to kind of your work ethic and your drive to play at the professional level. And we're gonna get a little bit about returning to your home state of Texas and playing for the Rattlers, but I think you could kind of see that in how you played in an All Star season last season. But now that I've mentioned it, how was it then in 2019 going to the Dallas Rattlers, playing in your home state of Texas? And playing in front of family and friends.
Right. It was incredible, and I mean I had an awesome time in Ohio and was ready to play there for the rest of my career, with Coach Davis and all them. So it was a shame that that didn't work out. But as soon as I got the news that the Machine weren't going to be around anymore, I knew that I needed to go play in Dallas. In the Star, the whole family there, all my friends from high school, my club coaches, everyone that had supported me from day one, being able to kind of see me at the pinnacle of the sport in the professional ranks, it was so special to me. And that's honestly what motivated me a lot in that offseason leading up to that year. I wasn't going to look back like, oh, I had a few good games, I'll be good next year. It was coming back home to Dallas was really what motivated me to work even harder than I had before, because like I said, at Monmouth, we worked so hard because we wanted to be the footsteps for people to follow. Going back home to Dallas was kind of the same thing. Like the Star is 20 minutes from where I grew up, like where I picked up my first stick.
Yeah,
so
wow.
There are kids wearing my high school's T-shirt in the stands, and being able to be on that field and have a kid point at me and say, "I can do that one day," was my biggest motivating factor. Because it was so far outside my mind when I was playing in 6th grade in high school and even in college. So like, if I would have had the Dallas Rattlers here and there was a kid from Southlake on the field and I would have been able to look at him and be like, this is possible. Like, I can make it there. That was really what motivated me, was to kind of give the kids from this Dallas area something to look up to and aspire to be, and show them that it is possible. Like you can do it if you put your mind to it. So that was my biggest motivating factor. And then, like, got all my friends in the front row, like drinking beers, having fun at the games. That was a blast, having my family there. All my old club coaches. Yeah, I mean, it was a dream come true. And I mean, you're playing on the Star. You got the Dallas Cowboys Star in the middle of the field. It was incredible.
Yeah, and you're a Cowboys fan too, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, so that must have been awesome to play in that type of venue.
Oh, it's insane.
And then, unfortunately, the Rattlers, you guys didn't get off to a good start. You went 0-7 despite, some close losses. And you looked all but out of contention But I think it's just a testament to, you and your teammates and Coach Warder's resolve in that you guys still never quit. You won 6 straight before losing, unfortunately, back-to-back one-goal games that ended up, ending your playoff hopes. But talk me through kind of, going 0-7, being doubted, and then you guys turning it around. And as you said, don't let the Rats get hot. Like, talk to me through how that kind of came about.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously we had a tough start, but when we would look back at all those games, Coach would break down the film and we would talk about it as a team. It was all on us. And I mean, that really doesn't happen much in the pro game when you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, we lost that. Usually it's like, oh, Lyle Thompson had 7 goals today. You can't really stop that. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna lose the game if he has 7 goals. But all those 7 losses, we could point to specific things. We didn't do this well. We didn't do this well. We need to improve. And so it was a big growing process because on that team, besides Donnie Moss and Mike Glazer, we didn't have one guy with more than 3 years of experience in the league. Mm-hmm. So and it's tough to get young guys to kind of play together as a team, hoping to win a championship. But we kept building on each week. Like the thing that we messed up in week 1, we didn't mess up in week 2, and so on and so forth. And I remember we went out to Denver, and Coach Warder actually gave us a speech about a Rats team from like 2008 or 9 or 10 or something like that. Mm-hmm. In our same spot. They were like 0-7 or 1-7. Went out to Denver, who was undefeated in first place, just like this Denver team was in first place. And he gives this big pump up speech that like, we're a better team than they were. We can do this kind of thing. And it was our turn to kind of get hot. And so we had a great game out there in Denver, took it to them, won that game. And then the Rats getting hot thing just kind of came as a joke. We were 1-7, and we just kind of kept telling everyone in the league, don't let the Rats get hot. We're coming.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It kind of started as a joke, and then we rattle off like 4 straight wins. And we're like, oh my God, don't actually let the Rats get hot. This is so much fun, So that was kind of where that was born, and I think we just all started playing cohesively as a unit. I mean, we had some roster changes. Coach Warder made some big moves that really bolstered our team. The addition of Bradley Voigt jump-started our offense so much. I mean, he may not show up in the stat sheet as much as he should, mm-hmm. but the havoc that he causes on the field in terms of, like, I couldn't get loose in those first 6 games because teams were able to slide. But when you've got Bradley Voigt on the field, teams don't slide because they don't want to leave him with his hands free, So that frees up me to score a goal when he doesn't get a point for it, but he should get an assist because teams are so worried about him. And then you add Adam Osika, who's an incredible 2-way midi, tough as nails. We added Jake Seau, who ran D-mid in transition for us, who's a stud, So, and then the addition of Sean Scanoni about 4 or 5 games in just absolutely jump-started that defense. He turned out to be goalie of the year his rookie season, which is absolutely incredible. So those moves coupled with just like a mentality change, a little maturity phase for the Rats, and then the Rats got hot, and it's too bad that we came up short, but I mean, we finished those last 9 games 7-2, so that was just a testament to that team and the resolve.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you were fun to watch. I mean, I remember me and Adam, we when we started the podcast, we were just like, yeah, I mean, the Rattlers, I think they're done, like, and then you guys rattled off that 1 win, and we're like, okay, I still can't pick them yet, or whatever. 2 wins. I think it took us by the 3rd or 4th win before I'm like, okay, maybe I will pick them in the pick them this week, So even we doubted you, but you could just tell that, like you said, you guys were getting better. You weren't making as many mistakes. You were in close games, and they started to just go your way. And I think you hit the nail on the head too with some of those additions. I mean, Bradley Voigt, you couldn't have asked for. I think that was his first goal of his MLL debut, the around the world goal. You couldn't have asked for a prettier first goal.
Yeah, that was insane.
So yeah, you guys were a lot of fun to watch. It's a shame that with what happened with the Dallas folding and now going to Connecticut. But yeah, I think you guys, for what you guys started out with, going 0-7, put on a magical run that I think won't be forgotten too easily. That brings me to your next point in your career. The Rattlers are ceasing operations. The team itself has moved to Connecticut to become the Hammerheads. You, however, were recently traded to the Cannons in exchange for Will Sands. How excited are you to join Coach Quirk and the Cannons in 2020?
Yeah, Coach Quirk is a guy who I've had a relationship with ever since I got into the league. He's been nothing but great, just not even for the Cannons, but for just team MLL in general, So I'm super excited to play for him. He's a super energetic, positive guy. It's too bad that we won't be back in Dallas. I mean, honestly, I'm starting to feel like the kiss of death at this point to all these franchises. But yeah, the trade to Boston, obviously I'll miss all those guys on the now Hammerheads a ton. They became like brothers to me over that summer. But jumping over to the Boston Cannons, I mean, I was pumped up to play for Boston. They do a great job just of hosting the guys, and they're really the class of the league in that sense. So I was pumped up to go be in Boston regardless. And then after my trade, a couple hours later, when all the news started coming through about Randy Stotts and Brian Cole, I mean, I just started getting so excited about thinking about being on that offense. I mean, you list off the guys we've got. It's Randy Stotts, Mark Cockerton, me, Challen Rodgers, Kyle Jackson, and Brian Cole. You look at that starting six, and I mean, I can't think of any. I mean, who do you cover? Who do you pull on that midfield? I mean, who gets the number one pull at the attack? I mean, all those ideas just started going through my head, and it just got me super pumped up to get out to Boston. I mean, that's an offense that can score 20 points a game. The only issue is there's only one ball at that point, So that just got me super pumped up. I actually just got back from Boston this morning. I took a quick trip up there for spring break, hung out with Nick Morocco, hung out with Coach Quirk, and had some dinner and just talked about the summer coming up, did some media stuff with the Cannons, and it's a great vibe up there, and I'm really excited to be part of the team. And I can't wait till training camp. Honestly, we got like 2 months now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you guys are looking like, the team to beat right now. Like you said, they didn't lose too many pieces in free agency, and then, you add a guy like Randy Stotts and Brian Cole, and you already got Mark Cockerton there, who we talked to, and, all-star goaltender Nick Morocco, who we also talked to. You guys are going to be scary next season for sure. So I think Coach Quirk put together a nice team for this 2020 season. But you mentioned all those guys. So here's a twofold question, I guess. How have you been preparing for the upcoming season? And then which of your new Cannons teammates are you kind of excited to play with and have you connected with since the trade?
So the first question, how I've been getting ready. So I'm down in law school at Miami, which has been incredible because the weather's been nice. So but I've been playing some games. There's some games that go on down in South Florida with some really good talent. There's actually a few current pro guys down there that play in the little Florida lacrosse circuit in the off season. And then I also am doing some training work with the guy who helps the Miami Hurricanes football team get ready for the NFL Combine.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So I've been working a lot more on explosive kind of quick twitch movements. Last year I was in shape, but I wouldn't say I was quick until the end of the season, which kind of changed my game a little bit. I didn't play that well at the beginning of the season because I was still kind of playing like I was in college, over carrying kind of things. And when I kind of settled down and started playing closer to the crease, like a more Rob Pennell style or Steele Stanwyck, kind of tiptoeing the crease and working like that, like quick twitch, kind of quick moves at X. That was when I started playing really well in that second half of the season. So that's what I kind of wanted to emphasize during this offseason, was just being explosive as I can be. And then obviously shooting after my workouts and all that, just getting ready. I mean, I honestly need to start watching some NLL games to get ready for this season with that roster that we've got.
Yeah, no.
So I think that I need to add that to my resume. But as far as being in contact with the guys, we've got the Cannons group chat going. I've been really close with Nick Morocco since we came into the league together in 2018. So he's one of my closer friends in the team. And then, I mean, I met a bunch of those guys at All Star Weekend, Fahey, Pugel, Cockerton, all those guys. And then just from playing against them, Scott Hooper covered me a few times. So, yeah, I mean, I reached out to Randy and Brian just saying that I was pumped, and they said they were pumped. So I think that we've got some team bonding to do over training camp weekend, but it should be a ton of fun. Yeah,
no, for sure. And yeah, and those guys, they bring that chemistry too. Being on the swarm together. But it's going to be an exciting MLL season. That kind of wraps up my main questions, Bryce, but we're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll go into our 5 and 5 questions.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast. Today I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Anchor. We've been using Anchor for the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast, and once it's published, they send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. They also connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast today, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Stitcher Premium. You can use Stitcher Premium to listen to shows ad-free such as Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, My Favorite Murder, Wolverine the Lost Trail, or our favorite, The Fantasy Footballers. For only $4.99 a month or $34.99 a year, you get access to Stitcher Originals, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. Better yet, if you go over to Stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code LACROSSE today, you can get 1 month free. So head on over to Stitcher, sign up, and get your free trial today. All right, so welcome back. Now it's time to do our 5 and 5 questions. We'll start off with the lacrosse questions. Number one I'll have is, what are some pregame superstitions or routines that you have?
So I retape my stick before practice on Saturdays. Yeah, I'd say that's really my only superstition. I ate Jimmy John's before the Rattlers games this summer, but I guess I'll have to change that up depending on the local cuisine in Boston.
I'm sure you can find a good sub spot up in Boston for sure. Number two, who was your favorite lacrosse player to watch when growing up?
Bugs Combs. I know that might be an obscure answer. He was a lefty attackman for the Bayhawks for 7 or 8 years, I think, 2-time All-American at Maryland. And his dad was actually my dad's defensive coordinator at Towson. And so Bugs was always like my idol growing up. I watched all of his highlight videos. The sidearm bounce shot that I do, Bugs taught me that like in the backyard with me. So Bugs Combs is my childhood hero.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I definitely recognize the name for sure. I grew up in Northern Virginia area, and my family's from Baltimore, so I went to a few Bayhawks games when I was younger. Number three, who has been your toughest opponent in the MLL?
Toughest cover was definitely Jesse Bernhardt. He's obviously the D coordinator at Maryland, so he knows his stuff. And then beyond his knowledge of the game, he's just absolutely tenacious. I remember he actually told me during a game, I did a little ward on his stick before I took a shot, and he was like, "If you touch my stick with that free hand again, I'm taking it off." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "All right, this is how we're doing it." Yeah, he's intense and he gets after you, so he was definitely my toughest matchup so far.
No, that's a great story. Yeah, we've talked to Jesse and Jake, and they're just competitors. You can just tell in their interview, and I think that was instilled in them, and their father, Jim Bernhardt, coached football and coached them in lacrosse, and they're some of the most competitive people, I think, in professional lacrosse. That's a funny story. It doesn't surprise me. Number four, what is your current lacrosse stick setup in terms of shaft, head, and stringing?
I'm figuring that out right now. I've been testing out some different stuff. I used True last summer.
Okay.
I just got a shipment of Maverick, so I've been testing out some things. So I'll have to see what I use in training camp. I'll have to follow back up with you.
Oh yeah, for sure. And maybe we can, post it on our social media channels and tell, the young athletes out there what Agent 002 is rocking, what his weapon of choice is. So.
Right.
Number five, what has been your favorite venue to play lacrosse at? I think I might know the answer to this one, but
the Star was incredible. I think that being my hometown makes it number one, and then close second would be Mile High Stadium out in Denver.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I figured it would be the Star and Mile High. I tell you, if we took a tally of how many people say Mile High, and it's no surprise, it's a great venue, but that's always at the top of people's lists.
Right.
All right, so that's the lacrosse questions. Now we'll go into the off-the-field questions. You mentioned you're in law school at University of Miami. So number one is, what's the toughest part of being in law school?
I'd say it's a different kind of school. It's not study this for 2 weeks, take a test. Study this for 2 weeks, take a test. It just all kind of builds on each other like building blocks, and you have to stay on top of your game. And then we literally only have one exam per class at the end of the year. So I think it's kind of one, staying on your work, and two, just kind of building you call it an outline in law school, but really essentially it's just like the building blocks of how all the law and statutes and all that stack up on top of each other. And then you kind of have to keep that all organized in your brain for that final test at the end of the year.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like a lot. I don't envy you at all. Number two, what are some hobbies or activities that you enjoy doing when you're not on the lacrosse field?
Yeah, I really like to golf. I like how it takes a long time, honestly, and it's a de-stressor. And then just being in Miami, we'll just shoot down to the beach for a little bit, hang out, rent some jet skis, and get out there. So I'd say that's what I do in my free time.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome time. Number 3, who is a non-lacrosse athlete that you think would excel on the lacrosse field?
Wow. Non-lacrosse. I want to say Odell Beckham Jr.
Okay,
'Cause
yeah, no, for sure.
He's clearly got great hands with all those one-handed catches that he does. So he's got some hand-eye, and then I mean he's one of the quickest dudes in the league. So yeah, I think he'd be a good midfielder.
No, I think so too. Yeah, that's definitely one. That's not one that has been suggested most recently either. So yeah, I think that's a good name.
Nice.
Usually we've been interviewing quite a few NLL guys recently, so a lot of them have been hockey comparisons and a few basketball here and there. But yeah, I like to hear a football name. I definitely think Odell would have the skill set for sure to play lacrosse. Number 4, what is your favorite meal, and do you prefer to dine out, take out, or cook at home?
Oh, I prefer to dine out for sure. My favorite meal, I mean, I love a good steak, but if I had to pick an actual restaurant, it would be Gianni's, this pizza place up at Monmouth.
Okay.
They do this chicken vodka wrap.
Oh, interesting.
So just breaded chicken chopped up and just smothered in vodka sauce inside a wheat wrap. Oh, I think I ate that like 2 or 3 times a week, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to see if I can swing by. So I'm in North Jersey right now, right outside the city, but my fiance's family lives in Brick, so not too far from Monmouth.
Yeah, so right there.
So when I'm on my way down there, I'll definitely have to check that spot out.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you will not regret it.
All right, I'll check it out and I'll let you know. Number 5, what's a book that you've read or a podcast that you're listening to that you'd recommend to a teammate or a friend?
One of the favorite books I've ever read was Drew Brees' book. I'm actually looking at it on my bookshelf right now. It's called Coming Back Stronger by Drew Brees. That was one of my favorite reads. Just kind of talks about his story of getting to the NFL, and it kind of related to me and my story. He small guy, short in stature, late bloomer, went to Purdue, not a powerhouse football school. So I related a lot to it. I think that's why I liked it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I have never read that book. I'll have to check it out, but I've listened to his story. I think it was on Paul Rabel's Suiting Up podcast a few years ago that I first listened to him. But I love him as an athlete. I just love, his mentality, and the fact that he's still performing at such a high level at his age is incredible. I'm a Ravens fan, but if I had to pick another team that I really hope wins another Super Bowl, it's Drew Brees with the Saints. They've gotten so close, and it seems like they've, whether it's the refs or just heartbreaking losses, have not had the best luck these past 3 years. But
that's what I was gonna say. It might be the refs on that one.
Yeah, definitely 2 years ago with the Rams game, for sure. But that wraps up our 5 and 5. The final question we like to ask our guests is, what is some advice that you have for a young athlete looking to one day play lacrosse professionally?
I'd say the one advice that I give is don't compare yourself to anyone else. I think that's what kind of helped me in my path. You get so caught up in comparing yourself to other people, whether it comes to stats or if you're a younger kid, what club team they play on. Just focus on you. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't compare yourself to all the other kids in your town or at your school. Just try to become the best version of you that you can be, and it'll pay off.
All right, I love it. No, I think that's good. There's so many players out there that try to emulate their favorite player, which is important, but to kind of know that you're a unique athlete yourself, and to kind of take your own game into your own hands, and know that there's only one of you out there. I think that's actually some really great advice.
I appreciate it.
Well, this has been great, Bryce. Really appreciate you coming on. Remind people where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so on Twitter, I'm at Bryce Wasserman. Instagram, Bryce Wasserman 2.
Okay, awesome. We'll definitely give Bryce a follow if you guys don't already. And Bryce, thank you so much for joining us today. Best of luck as you prepare, for this season with the Cannons.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully we can talk again after we win a championship.
Today's show is being brought to you in part by Stitcher Premium. You can use Stitcher Premium to listen to shows ad-free such as Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, My Favorite Murder, Wolverine the Lost Trail, or our favorite, The Fantasy Footballers. For only $4.99 a month or $34.99 a year, you get access to Stitcher Originals, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. Better yet, if you go over to Stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code lacrosse today, you can get 1 month free. So head on over to Stitcher, sign up, and get your free trial today.